Great to be back again on your Saraway Sports Business Show, Sport Exchange. My name is Judy Olano. On today's show, we will take you through some of the latest as far as sports business is concerned. That is talking sports business news first. You know how we do it on the show. And after that, we go straight to the dugout segment. On today's show, it's another fantastic edition that I don't want you to miss. Stay with me on the show as we look at a very important factor in developing a young athlete or developing a successful athlete. There is the parent factor, and that is what we will be looking at on the show. I've given it away, so if you want to enjoy every bit of the show, or if I were you, I will stay locked and go nowhere. I'll be back after this timeout.
Fantastically finished.
Welcome back and straight to the sports business news. We'll start from Spain. Spanish soccer giants Barcelona have approved the sale of a minority stake in their licensing and merchandising division, as well as ceding up to 25% of income from their La Liga TV rights. And still moving on, of the delegates members representing fans, 88% voted in favor of selling a 49 to 95% share in Barca licensing and merchandising. The club will retain a repurchase option. 87% of the accredited members supported the move to cede up to 25% of La Liga TV rights income to one or more investors and or obtain financing based on the rights. Barca says they expect to earn around 600 million euros from the deals, which help to shore up the club's finances, ensuring it can finish the financial year without losses and increase their spending limit. Barca's debt spiraled to 1.35 billion euros last year, and they are also pushing ahead with the redevelopment of their Camp Nou stadium, which is projected to cost in the region of 1.5 billion euros. The club posted a loss of 485 million euros after tax for 2020-2021. Moving on. Brewing giant also Bosch InBev will not renew its exclusive sponsorship deal for the Super Bowl after next year's event. The company, whose brands include Budweiser, Bud Light, Michelob Ultra, has sponsored the National Football League's showcase game since 1989. It means AB InBev competitors such as Heineken and Molson Coors will now be free to run national commercials during the Super Bowl for the first time in 35 years. And now to Africa. This year's edition of the prestigious award ceremony for the African football, the CAF Awards 2022, will hold on July 21st, 2022 in Morocco. The CAF Awards will be held ahead of the final of Africa's flagship women's competition, Women's African Cup of Nations, Morocco 2023, scheduled to take place from July 2nd to July 23rd. The event will also coincide with the 2-year anniversary of the launch of CAF Women's Football Strategy. In line with that, a new category, Interclubs Women Player of the Year, has been introduced following the successful rollout of the Total Energies CAF Women's Champions League in November 2021. The period under review is from September 2021 until June 2022. And finally, FIFA, the World Football Governing Body, has announced the host cities for the 2026 World Cup, which will be co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The list of host cities was revealed in a ceremony in New York. 16 cities across the 3 countries were approved to stage the largest World Cup ever, with 48 teams expanding from its current format of 32. The U.S. has Kansas City, Dallas, Atlanta, Houston, New York, New Jersey, Boston, Seattle, Philadelphia, Miami, San Francisco and Los Angeles, while Mexico has Guadalajara, Monterrey, and Mexico City. Canada will be represented by just 2 cities, Toronto and Vancouver. The tournament will be the first World Cup to be co-hosted by 3 countries. That's it for the sports business news. We're going to break, and when we return, it'll be time for the dugout segment. Don't go west here.
Fantastically finished.
Success in sports has so many downsides as well. But the story of success in sport is filled with the parent factor. Many examples abound when you talk about the role played by a parent in the life of a successful athlete. From the Serena Williams to the Venus, the Williams sister, you call them Novak Djokovic rather, as well as Neymar. Many of them have to thank their parents for contributing to their success. And that is why we'll be showing you the next report about a young boxer in Nigeria, Maria Ademodi. Let's tell you about that story and what role our parents are also playing in our future. And we'll be back.
At a time when the sport seems to be losing its appeal in the mainstream, in a suburb of the state capital of Lagos is where we find this promising girl boxer whose parents welcomed us into their home. This 12-year-old diamond in the rough, Maria Ademodi, is a junior secondary school student. Her father, David Ademodi, introduced his daughter to the sport even when the mother was initially opposed to the idea. But today, both parents are #1 cheerleaders.
When I'm even coaching her here, her mother have started fighting with me. I don't want to kill my daughter, I don't want to do this also. When he's now starting the boxing. But when her mommy saw her in the interview, saw her in this thing, her mother now have impression to support the motion.
Maria started her boxing journey at the age of 6 when her father took her to his friend who is a boxing coach in the neighborhood. According to David Ademodi, Maria's grandfather was also a boxer. No wonder it runs in the family, as Maria's elder brother is also in the profession. At her age, Maria takes no prisoners as she competes with boys of her age, making them kiss the canvas, as she remains unbeaten with a record of 38 wins and 2 draws in all her bouts so far.
I fought 14 matches, 2 draws and 38 wins, and some of the 38 are knockouts. If my opponent is coming, if he's punching me, I will guide her, but if he's punching me immediately, I will throw punch. Like 4, 3, 1, 2, double jab. I will step inside with jab. And I will not let him go. And I attack first.
Her parents are helping her to balance education with boxing, as they make sure she does not joke with her studies while working with a professional boxing coach who is taking her in his wings, and a talent manager who is there to also put her through the journey ahead.
I saw someone that is really smart, someone that is intelligent, and someone that has this hunger to be successful. Okay, these days we get to see a lot of girls, a lot of young girls that are trying to compete with boys in this sport, and getting to see her, how she spoke to me that day, and I saw something different. I saw someone that needs a little bit of polishing to get to that next level. It was just different, and I was like, I'll take this up, like I'll push this from here, and let's see where we can take her. Let's see where we can take her to. So I saw that hunger. Like, she just needs someone that can put her in the right directions. Tell her the right thing to do, and she can be the next Classera Shields. She can be the next big thing in the boxing world.
David Ademodi is an example of a parent getting intentional about the sporting future of his daughter. Abisola Adebayo, TV360 News.
Welcome back from that, and now I move straight to today's topic, which is about parenting in sports, and the topic is intentional sports parenting. Joining me to look at this is a lawyer by profession and a sports performance coach. He specializes in talking to parents as well as athletes. Tola, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining me once again.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's a great topic that you picked for today, because it's about time that issues like this are beginning to be discussed so that they are made mainstream.
Wow. Let me say kudos to you, because I picked this from you and it's good to bring it to the public domain. Let's talk about intentional sports parenting. Like I said, the sports world is filled with stories of athletes who've had the parent factor. They've contributed to their success. What do you think, or why should the parent factor be so crucial when we talk about making a success out of your sporting career?
So I think the first part, which is a critical question to ask, is what is the reason that children who want to become professional athletes don't make it? When you ask that question, then there are 5 factors. I've forgotten there was a pair, it's 2 guys who did a study, like a thesis on that. So they researched the length and breadth of, professional sports. And what are those 5 factors? Lack of mental skills, lack of physical skills, parenting input, luck, and pathway-based failures. So one of the key elements is the parenting input. So when you identify that, then you will know that whether it's from the parent angle or whether it's from the guardian angle, it plays a critical role in how a child will succeed in sports. Recently on my social media handle, I did a research on the French Open in tennis. And I looked at all the athletes that got to the semifinals and finals in the French Open. 100% of them had intentional sports parents. So that tells you that it is not something that as a parent, if you want it for your child, you can leave it to chance. We'll see how it goes. If it's God's will, then it will happen. That's not it. It's a different case if you're not really sure whether you want it and you just leave it to the opportunities that are out there. This message is for the parents who actually want it. You were an athlete, so maybe it's in your gene and you feel like, your child would have taken some part of your gene or something like that. You want it, you then have to be intentional. And the way you are intentional, which is what I later developed as the intentional sports parenting framework, is what would determine whether they're successful or not. So in a nutshell, that's about it.
Tola, of course, you've seen, especially when you come to, maybe we should come back to our environment, Nigeria, and it's not too common. And what would you suggest? Because it's a culture I feel that we should embrace. Because if you look at, if parents begin to take, they begin to take it serious, they begin to take, especially for example, most schools these days, they struggle with sports. Most of them don't even have the space. Most of them. So, and even at home, we don't have this conversation. How do we redirect this conversation to make sure that because it's also good for national development?
Oh yes, and I think where it starts from, it's reorientating the parents to see that sports is a viable option. Not just playing. You have athletes who attempted to play professional sports. Yes, they couldn't, but they're now in broadcasting. They are in sports law. People like me, I wanted to become a professional athlete myself. Unfortunately, I got injured and I tore my ACL at a time when there were no doctors in Nigeria who could fix ACL surgeries. So now I'm into sports law. Now I'm into performance. There's so many things that, young athletes can do in sports beyond just playing. So I think it's a reorientation for the parents that the people that partake in sports are not necessarily unserious. It's now an ecosystem in and of itself. I think when they start in that angle, then of course they can then begin to take deliberate steps. That's why it's intentional sports parenting. You are clear about the outcome you want and you are deliberate about your actions. So if we start from the angle of reorientating our thoughts towards sports, that look, this can be a career, this is an option for this case, then I think more of those parents would then begin to seek the knowledge that they need that, okay, I want my child to play professional sports. How do I go about it? Because I think that's also a problem. Because there's no reorientation, then the know-how is also not there. And then it's difficult. And of course, again, you don't have enough people who are teaching them or who are providing the education needed to ensure that you go from this step to this step to this step. You follow this process, you increase your chances greatly of making it happen. So it starts with that reorientation.
I know you have one or two experience with parents, especially from the ridiculous to the sublime, really. And maybe for the sake of conversation on this program, can you take us through some of the things that you are inundated with, especially on the day-to-day that has to do with what parents really feel? Because we must go into the mindset of an average Nigerian parent now.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I've faced the two ends of the spectrum. So you have parents who, have more or less, quote unquote, missed the boat. So in the sense that they have children, for example, who are in their 20s and still want to play professional football. Now, obviously, that's a different dynamics from when they were maybe like 13 or 14. If they're in their 20s, anybody that you're approaching is looking at a very high level of talent and is also looking at track record of what they have done from the time when they were about 15. So you're already set back by about 8 years. So I had a parent recently who came to me and his son was in university about rounding up, and he wanted to play professional football and he wanted to play in England, for the Arsenals and the Manchester Uniteds that you have, and I told him straight away, I said, look, that is not happening anytime soon. Because if you understand how the sport works, you would know that not only are you behind, but in order for you to make it happen, you're going to have to take a long journey to come right back around. So it's not as easy as you just saying, oh, this is what I want to do, and that will happen. So that's the parents on the other end of the spectrum. Then I've had parents who, their children are 8, 9, and they want to start out on that intentional path, and I've taken them through the process that they need. There was one particular one who, is a swimmer, for example. And, I've said, look, swimming is a fantastic sport, individual sport. So the success is largely dependent on the child. So it's an individual sport where success is in your hands. Unlike football, where it's a team sport, you have to find a team. You need an agent to get you on a team. You need certain relationships to make football happen. It's not the same with swimming. And I've guided this parent. So both parents, for the parent whose child was 22, I told him that, look, these are the things that you need to do. It's not impossible. It's not late, but this is what you have to do. For the parents whose child was young, I'm like, it's fantastic that you're starting out early. And of course, you have everything ahead of you as long as you do things, the right way. So in a nutshell, those are like two examples, but there are other examples as well. Parents who have coached and, their children are now in universities abroad, either on scholarships, about to get scholarships, who are now doing things the right way. And of course, they come back years later, and they can attest to the fact that, oh, because I started being intentional, that's why I'm getting these results. And I think that's another message to the parents as well. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So the fact that you start being intentional today, it doesn't mean that you're going to start seeing the results tomorrow. It might take 2 years. It might take 3 years. But if you are not intentional, you're not going to see any results, 100%. If you're intentional, you increase your chances of seeing results, but it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Fantastic. But yeah, I love the fact that you have to bring up about how intentional the parents have to be, because of course, that brings me to the next question now. That is, the parents also must come from a place of knowledge, knowing exactly what to do at the right time. Is there any, are we having that conversation from the parent side? Because how aware are some of the parents now, especially now that you just look like, for example, I'm sorry, I'm going this way there because I noticed that most of the Gen Z athletes that we have now, the younger ones, are beginning to talk about mental health. That is another, cases complaining about how toughen are these young people. How are the parents preparing them from this task that might tell on their mental state?
Oh, of course. And, like I said, there are 5 things or 5 reasons why athletes don't make it. One of them is lack of mental skills. I always tell the parents this, and I'm glad you mentioned this awareness issue. I tell the parents this because one of the things that I've seen with parents when they first reach out to me is they're looking for an academy for your child. Can you recommend an academy? Can you get an academy? And I'm like, it's beyond getting an academy, right? When you're talking about those mental skills, they are only going to spend a limited amount of time with their coaches or in those academies. If they are spending more of their time with you, it means that you have a capacity, or you have to have the capacity to build their mental skills, because even the coaches that they are working with might not have the requisite education to help them with those mental skills. So if you're just going to dump your child in an academy or dump your child with one coach, if they're spending 2 hours with the coach every week, it means that the remaining 22 hours of each day, when they are not going to training, they're spending it with you. So how are you imparting them? How are you teaching them? How are you knowledgeable about those mental skills? And that, again, comes back to the sports parenting that we are talking about. So if the parents lack the skills, then of course it is to the detriment of the athlete going forward. They might be lucky to find a coach who has those skills and prepares them from the ground up, right? But what happens if the coach doesn't have that? Then it then behoves on the parent to teach them those skills to the point where they become their own person, and then they can take up the mantle.
Fantastic. Tola, before I let you go, what are the things, the qualities now? Because of course, you've led me to the next question. The qualities that this parent should have to make sure that they're getting the job done.
It starts with intentionality. They have to be intentional about education, about understanding the process. There is a process to every single sport, right? Even from choosing the sport that your child plays, there's a process. One example I always share is that, for example, I'm not the tallest man in the world. You know, I'm about 5'7", 5'8". My wife is about 5'7", 5'8", thereabouts, right? In normal climes, right, the potential for my child to be 6 feet tall is not that high. So imagine me introducing my child to basketball, believing that he's going to be the next LeBron James. I'm just wasting my time, right? Because if I look at it from the gene factor and I look at my family tree and all of that, the chances that my child will grow tall are not that high. So in choosing a sport for my child, I wouldn't pick basketball, right? So it starts with that intentionality first. Then it starts with them getting the education. If they have those two, they can pick up everything else along the way. But it's intentionality and then getting the education they need.
Wow. What a way to land. This is just the beginning. Thank you for making your debut on the show. This is massive. And I hope that when next we call you, you will answer us, Tola.
I hope so too.
By the way, you're doing a good job. A great job you're doing. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's Tola Gulewe, lawyer, at the same time a sports performance coach, specializes in talking to the parents and dealing with athletes too. All right. Okay. It's still Sport Exchange, and before we go, I will definitely run you through our offside for this week. But don't forget, you can follow us on all our social media handles on Twitter, Sport Exchange 24, and on Facebook, Sport Exchange 20. Just like, follow, and be part of it. And of course, if you want to join us, you want to watch this all over again, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, TV360 Nigeria. Okay? And yeah, before I go, the offside is about the World Cup largesse, and it's Canada Soccer World Cup largesse and collective bargaining. That's what we are looking at today on the show. And it's recently the Canada men's national team embarked on a strike that forced a friendly with the Panama in Vancouver to be called off. The reason? The players felt the percentage of the money that Canada Soccer, the country's football association, was offering to them from the World Cup largesse was unacceptable. The players called the overture by Canada Soccer disrespect. Canada have qualified for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, only the second time they have reached the men's final, having previously played in 1986 in Mexico. There were conflicting reports around the percentage of prize money the players have been offered by Canada Soccer. A report says the national team players had been offered about 10% of the total amount that the country will get from FIFA, set to be at least $10 million. Canada Soccer told a cross-section of the media that the offer was 60% to be split equally between players on the men's and women's teams, with the players requesting between 75 to 100%. But the good thing is that an amicable resolution is being worked on to have a no victor, no vanquished situation. So It is not only in Nigeria that officials and players disagree over money. It happens everywhere, collective bargaining when it comes into play. That's it. On today's edition, thanks for joining me, and let's do this some other time. Yours truly, today's man of the future in sports business, Gideon Lanino, signing out.